Hi, in this video, we'll take a look at how to calculate the portfolio risk and return in a two-stock situation. Suppose I have stock A and B with different expected returns and standard deviation. So for stock A, the return is 15%. For stock B, the return is 20%. The standard deviation for stock A is 30%, and for stock B, it's 50%. And for now, for simplicity, we'll assume that this portfolio is equally weighted of stock A and stock B, which means the weight for both stocks would be 50%. And then we need the covariance between the return of stock A and stock B. We'll assume it's going to be 0.2. But what does covariance describe in the sense of stock returns? It simply describes whether the returns will move in the same direction. So if the covariance is positive, then their returns tend to move at the same direction. And if it's negative, then their returns will move in the opposite direction. And if it's zero, then there will be no correlation between the return for these two stocks. So they're uncorrelated. Okay, so how do we calculate a portfolio that consists such stocks? Okay, so let's first do the return here. Okay, the return is simply, again, the weighted average of the expected return. Okay, so the expected return for the portfolio is going to be 0.15, which is the which is the expected return for stock A, and then multiplied by its weight, which is 50%, or 0.5, and 0.2, which is the expected return for stock B, multiplied by 0.5 again, which is the weight for stock B. And then you would have 0.175 or 70.5% as the expected return for this portfolio. So the tricky part is, how do we calculate the variance or the standard deviation for the portfolio return? So let's first do the variance here. Okay, so the variance of the portfolio is a bit different from the weighted average. So we'll first need the square of the weight for the first stock multiplied by 0.3 squared, which is the variance of the first stock. And we add the weight squared for the next stock and multiplied by its variance again. Okay, so the variance is simply standard deviation squared here. Okay, but it's not over. And then you have to add 2 times the covariance and times 0.5 times 0.5, which is the respective weight for two different stocks here. Okay, so that will give you the variance of the portfolio. So if we plug in the numbers, we would have the variance being 0.185. So the standard deviation for the portfolio is the square root of the variance, which is the square root of 0.185. If you plug in the numbers, it's close to 0.43 or 43%. Okay, so we need to generalize this and put it into a generalized equation. So if we have a two-stock situation here, the return for the portfolio would be W1 R1, which is the weight for the first stock, and the return for the first stock, plus W2 R2 here. Okay, and that's for the two-stock situation. And the variance for the return of the portfolio is going to be W1 squared sigma 1 squared plus W2 squared sigma 2 squared plus 2 times the covariance of R1 and R2, and then multiplied by W1 and W2. Okay, so if we have only two stocks and we're given similar information like this, then we can simply plug in the numbers to use the equations here. Okay, so notice how this thing looks like completing the squares, or open the squares of a plus 2 to the power of 2, right? So This is how you calculate the portfolio return and portfolio variance. So if you need a standard deviation, you need simply take the square root of the variance.